welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm a teacher and author, and this is English Nerd. So I am continuing on in the series of poem analyzing. My plan today is to talk about Percy Bysshe Shelley's sonnet, Ozymandias. It is one of his most famous poems. It was the very first one that I read by him, and it's pretty easy to unpack once you have a few of the tools and pieces that you need. And so I'm going to walk you through my analysis of Percy Bysshe Shelley's Ozymandias. Alright, so here is Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Shelley was the husband of Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, which is a pretty cool fact. Shelley was also one of the poets of the Romantic era, and this matters because the Romantics, they were rebels. They were pushing against the Enlightenment and the kind of fastidiousness of the British writers of the 1700s, the earlier 1700s, that is. So Percy Bysshe Shelley was in the second generation of Romantics, who were even bolder and more rebellious than their predecessors, and so that kind of informs what we're looking at when we read Ozymandias. First of all, when you see that title, Ozymandias, at first no association may come to mind, and that's perfectly normal, but this is actually the Greek form of the name Ramesses II, who of course was a pharaoh in Egypt. And so this story is based on something that is at least allegedly a true story, but we'll see what Shelley does with it. Okay, right off the bat, we can tell that this is a sonnet. Anytime you have that square shape, chances are it's going to be a sonnet, the 14 lines, the rhyming, quatrains, and all of that. I'm going to focus more on the content in this video, but if you want to, of course, you can look into some of those elements as well. So it goes this way. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies. Okay, so I'm just going to stop there because in this we get a really compelling image of this statue. So there's kind of a frame narrative going on here. The narrator meets a traveler who tells us about this statue, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone. So that means that it's just these massive legs, but the torso is gone. And then near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies. A visage is a face. So the head is over here, the legs are over here, and so this once was a gigantic statue, but it's now in the desert with very little around it, and so let's carry on, see how it goes. So we have that shattered visage that lies nearby, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptures well those passions red which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. Okay, so here's where the language starts to get a little gnarlier. You have to trace where are the subjects, where are the verbs, what is actually being said here. We know that there's that head that's lying next to the torso-less legs, and the face that is half sunk in the sand there has a frown, a wrinkled lip, and a sneer of cold command. That's going to be the most important descriptor there. Sneer of cold command. So this is somebody, predictably, who was in power. Like I said at the beginning, this is a statue of Ramses II of the great Egyptian empire. So he has this sneer. And that expression, if you can picture that expression, that sneer of cold command, that is the expression of somebody who thinks that they are untouchable, that their power can't be overcome. And so Shelley goes on to say that these features, this expression is so well depicted on this statue that its sculptor really read those passions well, that the sculptor understood those those emotions, those passions. The sculptor had seen those things presumably on, if not the pharaoh himself, then on other people. I mean, we've all seen people who have this kind of attitude. There's a reason that I'm framing it this way. When we get to the end, you'll see that there is this overall kind of message that Shelley's trying to get across, not only about Ramses II, but about all people who have this sneer of cold command, this assumption that they will never be overcome. So the sculptor really understands these passions, the ones that he stamped on these lifeless things. These lifeless things are the only ones that remain. Ramses II, of course, is gone, and so is the sculptor who once upon a time created this masterpiece. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. So this line here is a little more obscure. What is it referring back to? But it's the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed seems to pretty clearly refer back to, once again, the ruler that is depicted in this statue. If you'll notice, so far we're still in the same sentence. This is just one massive sentence describing what this statue is all about, at least so far. There are some short sentences that we get down here. And on the pedestal upon which the legs are, right, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Ooh, okay, so now we get into the juicy part here. Before, we got a beautiful visual, kind of haunting visual, but now we're getting to the meat of why Shelley is writing this sonnet. So on the pedestal, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Now, King of Kings is not only something that refers to the Egyptian Empire and the pharaohs, it refers also to the Caesars of the Roman Empire. This is also a phrase that Christ commandeered as well, King of Kings, just to express the magnitude of his power as well. So we have political power, we have religious power, we have all these different kinds of the most powerful, let's say, have used this term. So my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. So a lot of loaded meaning there. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. So you can tell from context that Ozymandias, who commanded these words to be put on the pedestal, is saying, look on my works, look at how grand and mighty I am, and despair that you will never live up to such greatness. However, there's an ironic twist here. Irony is just when the outcome is the opposite of what's expected. And so here, when it says, look on my works, ye mighty, and despair, there's a different kind of despair here. It's not the despair of I'll never live up to the power of this magnificent figure, but as Shelley writes, nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So there is nothing left of this great empire that Ramses II built up. His power is nothing. Instead, nature has completely asserted, her dominance over all of his doing. So, look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. All of a sudden, it's not the original meaning, but now it's despair because your great accomplishments will, over the course of time, end up not mattering, being taken over. So it's nature, and there's some interesting features to the very end here that really punctuate that point as well. So this is the end of the sentence that began at the beginning of the poem. So it's this story, this description, and not only do we get an exclamation point, but that's our punctuation mark to the entire thing so far. Nothing beside remains. that short sentence really stands out, because up to this point it's been this big long thing. That's a lovely simple way to make something stand out, either in poetry or in prose, to have a long sentence followed by something that is like its own punctuation mark. Nothing beside remains. So it makes you stop. It makes you think, oh, nothing is around like it once was. Around the decay of that colossal wreck. Now it's not this magnificent thing, but it's this wreck, boundless and bare. The lone and level sands stretch far away. So the way that the sand is described is interesting as well. I mentioned already that it's nature that has encroached, which is a very romantic, with a capital R, romantic idea that nature itself is sovereign over all human machinations or whatever. Reason doesn't particularly matter. Order doesn't particularly matter. It's the chaos of and the grandeur of nature that really can overcome all of those things. But boundless is another word that is really interesting. This has no bounds, no political bounds, no religious bounds, no none of that. Another tenet of Romanticism was the idea of freedom. So the Romantics tended to support different revolutions and things like that were going on in Europe at the time. So yes, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So at first it seems like this atmospheric image of an Egyptian statue, and it is. But it's also meant to be an indictment of the current systems and how they think they will never be overcome. Because here, as Shelley very heavily implies, everything will be overcome. Everything will be shaken down and taken down in the name of nature and freedom and this kind of beautiful chaos. So there you go, Ozymandias. I hope that helped you to understand Ozymandias better and Percy Bysshe Shelley's position in the Romantic movement in England. So make sure to follow this channel, subscribe to this channel for more English nerdy goodness. Like this video if you like it, and I will see you next week.